You know, there's this quiet tension that lives between what we believe we are capable of and what the world expects from us, between high standards and human limits, between wanting to make change and realizing change often asks us to face uncomfortable truth about the systems we are part of and ourselves. Welcome to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host Yusuf, and today's guest, Jessica Rennard, has lived in that intersection. She spent her career driving impact in the sustainable fashion industry, developing the resale market long before it became a buzzword. From launching her own secondhand business to now leading as the Chief Merchandising Officer at HELPSY, a certified B Corp redefining clothing reuse and circular economy. Jessica's story isn't about fashion, it's about how we measure value in what we buy, how we live, and what we choose to care about. So, today, we are talking about hard truths, high standards, and the human moments that keep us grounded while we try to build something better. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Mom, it's our pleasure. So, Jessica, in industries driven by purpose like sustainability, there's this unspoken pressure to always get it right. How do you personally balance striving for ethical perfection with the reality that progress is messy and imperfect?
I think we strive to stay true to our company's mission, even with all the noise going on in the industry. And there's a lot of like misconceptions and lack of transparency in the fashion industry. So it's important that we just are kind of like heads down, focusing on our mission and our big picture and what we're trying to accomplish. Um, and like as long as we know our guiding light is to keep clothing out of the landfill, that's what we strive to do every day.
Wow. And what if someone is in that particular situation where he has to strive for the balance, but there are sometimes that your ethics sometimes overgrow that you have to bring out a result. What should a person do in that situation?
When their ethics are being challenged,
Yes, exactly.
um, I would say to as hard as it is to stay true to the ethical mission of what you're trying to do. I've worked with a leadership coach my whole career, and that's something that has helped me kind of navigate those difficult situations.
Okay. Do you have any tips or tricks that you can share?
I would say like look for an executive coach or find a mentor in your industry that is someone that you can lean on when you're going through those types of challenges.
Hmm. Okay. And sustainability sounds noble, but it is still a business. Have you ever faced moments where the mission clashed with the margins, where doing what's right didn't make financial sense?
Yes, and I think that that's why even big fashion brands struggle to become sustainable or struggle
Mm.
to adopt circular models is because it often is not profitable. So of course, like, for us as a small business, we have to stay profitable to pay our bills. We're not a nonprofit or government funded. But that's an overall challenge that is happening with major global brands today. And there are times where, um, we'll get in a shipment where it's like it's all damages or something like that. And we'll have to like pay to get it recycled or pay to get it repaired where maybe somebody else wouldn't stay true to that and they would just throw it away. Sometimes we have to like invest in doing the right thing.
True. That is true. So, what I could understand is that sometimes doing right might cost us, it might not make financial sense. But then again, if you are doing it right, you have to do it.
Yes.
So, my question is that how do you like hold to your ethics in that time, and how do you manage that situation?
Yeah, we try to focus on which model in circularity really works for us and where we have found our sweet spot balancing profitability and sustainability is in the circular returns area. So we are handling returns for brands. They're coming straight to us. We're processing the returns, grading them, and then we're purchasing them outright. And so as long as we like stay true to and keep replicating models that we know work, we often won't find ourselves in a loss or like a lot of recurring losses. But mistakes do happen, and sometimes we have to take a risk. And we definitely have made mistakes before.
Yes, that's that's something nice to hear, because most of the time people show themselves that they are great, they are perfect. If they are making a lot of money, they had not made any loss. And thank you for sharing that you also make mistakes.
Oh yes, many of them.
Yeah. But some people argue that circular fashion has become more like a marketing strategy than a genuine shift. What's your take? Are we evolving or just repackaging old patterns with greener language?
I think both is happening. Um, it's hard to attach whose responsibility is to drive that change. When a garment is produced, is it the brand's responsibility to already have that exit strategy planned for the item, or is it when the consumer purchases it in a store, it's then the consumer's responsibility to educate themselves on what they do with that garment when they no longer want it? Or is it the government, or is it the manufacturing plants? And so what's happening is that not one sector has taken responsibility, not saying that they should. Um, but I think that's why it's like sometimes we feel like we're moving the needle in a certain like small part of the entire supply chain, but it's broken in so many different points along the supply chain. I think, as a whole, we just have to make a lot of small changes together over a long period of time to really move the needle.
Yeah, that's how we should move forward. And I think it's more on like a collective effort. If a company has started this initiative, let's just be supportive. And the government should also help those companies, even if they are, let's just say, repackaging the word.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. However, you see systems like recycling bottles and cans, that is driven by the government, and even that system is pretty broken. So I think all parties along the path of the supply chain have to like step in and agree on a way to move forward. And there's a lot of that happening behind the scenes in small ways. Um, and, like, I see it in certain areas, and then I don't see it in other areas, so it's been interesting how it's evolved over time.
And you spent years in resale. But let's talk about people behind the process, the workers, the consumers, even the leaders. What emotional or human cost have you noticed in keeping up with that sustainable label?
Well, I think that most consumers are driven, based off of impulse purchases, like, you have everything ships next day. The easier it is for us to get our hands on a garment, um, probably the less sustainable it is, and the fast fashion brands, made a huge splash a couple years ago, and they're still around. So I think that for consumers, they have to really focus on making purposeful purchases, um, and not sometimes that comes at a higher cost, right? So there's all these ideologies that sometimes are conflicting when it comes to like that point of what like how to be sustainable within your own home as a consumer. And it's not always easy for someone to like make that change or decision.
Hmm, true. And do you think our obsession with more even when it's secondhand, ethical, or recycled, still feeds into the same consumption cycle we are trying to escape?
That's a really interesting question. So the secondhand industry I see diverts a lot of clothing from landfill. I think what it does is it just extends the time until that garment ultimately ends up in a place it shouldn't. Um, but what ultimately has to happen for secondhand to really make a change is that brands have to, and this is a hard thing for a brand to even conceptualize, but brands have to stop producing as much as they do so that the secondhand part of the industry can truly become circular. But if like for every secondhand purchase we make, we're also making a new purchase, it's just a linear problem still.
Hmm.
Um, I think secondhand has come in, over the last 5 to 6 years and really made people aware and open their eyes that there is another way to purchase and be fashionable. But I don't yet know if it's decreasing production on the brand side.
Okay. It is a kind of paradox, isn't it? We
Mhm.
want change, but we still want comfort.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah, it
and
definitely is.
yes. Are there any ways that our listeners can connect with you?
Yeah, my Instagram is the fashion disruptor, and my business, our reselling Instagram is the dot new source, NUSOURCE.
Okay. I'm sure our listeners will love to connect with you. And Jessica, is there anything that you want to leave us with before getting off the call? The final message, if you have.
Yeah, I think if we're like just specifically talking about sustainability, to just be conscious about when you do make a purchase, you're thinking about when you're finished with that item, is there a nonprofit nearby that is has a trusted mission that you can give it to, or like what other means are in your area that would result in not throwing it in the trash because 85% of Americans throw away around 110 pounds of clothing a year. So just to know that number and be conscious of it, I think is good to know.
Wow. You know, today's conversation reminded me that doing good isn't always clean or easy. It's gritty, it's full of compromise, and demands a kind of honesty most of us avoid. Jessica, you've shown the path forward isn't about perfection. It's about persistence, humility, and the courage to question even our own good intentions. To everyone listening, whether you are rethinking your wardrobe, your business, or just how you define success, remember that it's okay to be in progress. The hard truths don't make us weaker, they make us real. I'm Yusuf, and this has been Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. Stay curious, stay kind, and stay human.